I think we've touched on all the topics a little bit, but I wanted to
Yeah.
kind of dive further into this concept of pairwise re-ranking and then setwise re-ranking, with basically the idea being, we have kind of these two extremes where either we have a cross encoder that looks at the query and the document, and then like it's doing that in parallel and never sees another document, or we've got the listwise re-ranker that says the query and all the documents. And I think this idea of maybe looking at the query in like two documents at a time, or we've talked a lot about the prior and the retrieval. Maybe you use the first result from vector search as like a anchor, and so you kind of have like here's like what hybrid search thinks is number one, and like but here's the next candidate. And so I
Hmm.
guess just generally opening up this topic of these neural re-rankers at a second stage that see more than one document, however however that's orchestrated.
Yeah, yeah. I think pairwise, I think we it was interesting because obviously it's like kind of going back to like if you conceptualize the task, it's like you know which document is more relevant. That's a very like much more tractable task than the other ones maybe we've discussed, bar maybe list-wise. Uh, I think there's definitely a future. I think when you have that, I think we talked about latency concerns, like doing pairwise for everything sounds like it would be very expensive. And so basically being able to, with all these new techniques coming out, I think there's going to be a lot more consideration of if you have these, service requirements of like I need to not blow up my time on maybe retrieval, how you combine them. And I think like there was a paper. I think you had sent it to me actually. It was like optimizing like compound retrieval systems, and I think they tried to do some learn policy stuff to try and like. I think to push this cost quality trade off of like how when to tap in one to another and like if I it gets kind of similar to us. Like they got some stealing of like the pairwise if they really spend it all, and it's like how much can we recover while pushing this curve sort of up into the left. And I think that's is really going to be a future thing. Actually, there's a work that I don't know if you saw. It happened to be I guess collaboration with it was led by Melissa Penn at Berkeley and some folks from MSR. They really focused actually on pushing this sort of for retrieval agents and sort of how can they like push the cost quality trade off. And they actually even we end up, and this is maybe you can go check the paper out. We even like it's like we look at the query and are able to make judgments of like how what should I do, like a simple retrieval, should I just go full agentic search mode, should I do multi-round. And it's like and almost like a natural language stuff. And so there are all these new things that are going to start coming out, I think, with how to push this cost quality trade off. And I think we're going to start seeing more diversity from just the cascading methods we saw before.
Yeah, that last the query specific prediction is so in your paper that you're mentioning. And do you mind giving the title? Sorry, I do remember the paper, but I can't remember the title
Yeah,
exactly off the top of
I
my
think
head.
it's
But
natural. I'm gonna double check. It's natural query, or natural language query. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the natural language query to configuration for retrieval agents. Yeah, and by the way, just quick, maybe for your listeners, you should totally check out Melissa Penn and Nagar's work. They're amazing. So, yeah, natural language query to configuration for retrieval agents.
yeah, and so the idea of you, yeah, and I think they also call that like adaptive RAG, or like generation like came with the party, but like that kind of adaptive retrieval and that
Hmm.
yeah, that per query prediction stuff is definitely a huge thing. And then I guess it's like, are you predicting? Is it always about predicting the particular pipeline and yeah, like predicting like okay, oh, for this query I'm going to retrieve 500, like I'm gonna re-rank from 500, whereas oh no, this query I'm gonna re-rank from 50. What
Yeah,
are the kind of
it's
yeah.
yeah. So I think like I talking about specifically for this work. So I think it's we actually the work is more so like they have these pre-configured pipelines. So it's like I think it's Melissa's work, so you should totally check her. But it's like the retrieval, just no retrieval, and then just like simple retrieval, and then multi-hop, and sort of like these predefined sort of pipelines. And so given a query, they actually have are able to, I guess, on the fly distinguish like specific features of like uh, what does this fit, and then they actually had trained a model of how to route this thing, or pick a configuration such that you can cover most of the quality while minimizing your cost.
Yeah, super cool. Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be a huge part of the future of this. And yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, it's like, yeah, I'm sorry.
especially with the end of like token maxing as we're seeing across people, like people are actually starting saying, oh wow, we can't just throw tokens at everything and expect it to go up at a reasonable pace. We're bankrupting ourselves. I think this line of work is super cool.
Yeah, it's kind of like the success of Open Router lately. It's like I remember when I first heard this idea, I had never thought this was going to work. This idea that you could take a prompt and then just have some layer in the middle that can route it to the optimal model to predict it. So like the
Mhm.
success, yeah, and yeah, and just do that for everything.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think this is like something I was like oh my God, I had so many ideas that I maybe are in but maybe like everyone. But like, this is in the context of like sort of DSPy stuff. It was like you have all these choices that you can make. And it's like, how do you learn the correct choices for all these things in the system? Because ultimately, like my take was like DSPy allows you to express sorry, I'm learning about DSPy, but like you express these like they like the I guess the inference time strategy, and then you have like these optimizers that change the prompts. But there's like a lot more, right? There's like the model, there's like even the question of like what do you offload to like the system versus what do you as the programmer control. So like maybe in a multi-hop thing, I know I want to do multi-rounds, but I don't care if it's 3 or 5 or 7 or anything. And so there's all these knobs that you can like tune. And I think eventually we were going to be like, oh wow, the system design space is much bigger than we thought, and these optimizers are going to start expanding.
Yeah, I love that Lang probe paper. They were trying to
Yeah.
work on the Berkeley group. Yeah, and it's like yeah, like benchmark all these different compound AI systems, and then yeah. I guess it could go two ways because you could either be benchmarking the optimizers like MIPRO versus GEPA, or you could be benchmarking the sort of like how particularly do we design the compound AI system.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
And I think like yeah, I tried to work on this a bit. I created a library called Retrieve DSPy to try to have a collection of these different pipelines we're talking about. Like, but you could have like different types of query writers. You could have pseudo relevance feedback. There's just like so many ways
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
set up these things, and then maybe yeah, I've the project has cobwebs on it, but like having Claude Code see like here's how you use DSPy, and then I imagined also having like a collection of information retrieval papers and being like, all right, combine these things. And it's on a Mac on the Mac Mini that's somewhere in my house. In my-
That Mac Mini is doing a lot of heavy lifting, huh?
yeah. Yeah, awesome. Awesome. Well, yeah, this has been a super cool discussion. Yeah, I love this paper drowning in documents, and I think it'll be a classic in information retrieval. There's so many cool ideas, and it really challenges that sort of like the effectiveness of cross encoders, and just yeah, it's super cool.